As most of you know, Shyam Benegal was a legendary figure in the world of what is often known as alternate or art house or independent cinema now. He has paved the way for many filmmakers to follow his path and his genre of filmmaking. And a few weeks ago, he passed away at the age of 90, just a few days, in fact, after celebrating his 90th birthday. So this session is to pay homage to his legacy. And we have two extraordinary artists, neither of whom need an introduction to audiences and film lovers of Kolkata. So I will just request Shabana Azmi and Rajit Kapoor to please come on stage. We have imposed upon Rajit to come directly here from the airport because that's the only way we could have them both together. And we cannot have a session remembering Shyam Benegal without two of his most celebrated discoveries. Both Shabana ji and Rajit made their film debuts with Shyam Benegal. And we are delighted that they are both here today for this session. In conversation with them is film journalist Priyanka Roy, who has had more than 18 years of experience in film writing and currently heads the film beat of The Telegraph, T2, our media partners.
This is easier. Both of you have had the honor and the privilege of having your first films, your debut films directed by him. In what ways have your illustrious careers been the more richer for it?
I could go on and on. This is the first time I'm speaking about him after he's gone, and I don't feel he's gone. I can't use a word to describe him. People refer, I could say father figure, mentor, friend, philosopher, guide, but these words fall short. I can't find a word. But we were just chatting just 2 minutes ago, and I said, I still think good. I feel good when I think about him. And suddenly William Wordsworth, for oft when on my couch I lie, in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. And then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils. So he could be this bunch of daffodils. I can't explain what he means to me. Metaphorically, I could call him my Suraj ka Satwaं Ghoda, because I think somewhere he was like that seventh horse of the sun that brought about. जो सबसे छोटा घोड़ा वो पीछे होता है ना, he brings about a certain balance. So there are so many ways to describe him, but I cannot give it a line or a label. I just can't. I don't know.
Well, Shyam to me was a guru, a mentor, a guiding light. I often turned to him when I was confused about whether I should do a film or not. But above all, he was my friend. And he was the one who gave me the privilege of that space. Because I keep saying he was my reluctant guru. He didn't want to be, not mine, he didn't want to be anybody's guru. But I would insist that that's what he was to me. Because, it's not just the experience of working with him in my first film. It was traveling with him. I remember when we were going to the Berlin Film Festival, I was like any youngster, just dying to go into the shops and immediately buy. This was the first time I was traveling abroad, and I was just looking forward to it. Yeah, oh my God, I looked at that shop and I said, but that exactly looks like the kind of thing I've seen in movies. And I was very excited by that. And suddenly I heard Shyam engage with the driver. And he was talking about the gardens of Berlin, about which he knew a lot. Then he was talking about the history of Berlin, and he was doing it so naturally. And suddenly I said, my God, there is more than just shopping to a city.
Right.
And So, from experiencing a new city to the actual act of sitting down in the morning at breakfast and deciding these are the films we should see because these are the filmmakers who should not be missed under. So it was worked out like that. And I believe that I would not be half the person, forget about half the actor, half the person had I not been Shyam, who, along with my parents, really shaped my aesthetics more than anything else. My aesthetics. I mean, I am from the Film Institute, I'm a trained actor. I was exposed to Fellini and Ingmar Bergman and Kurosawa at a time when it was impossible to think that these wonderful directors could be available. But that was distant, and yet this was a person that I was traveling with, and being around him was such a learning experience in every way. I think you used to say she's like a ticking battery, just absorbing everything around her because I had no choice because he was such an interesting man, interesting person. And I really I owe a lot to him. Apart from my parents, I think I would equate him as the most important influence in my life.
And they called him walking encyclopedia. Now these things are all coming back after you mentioned what you just did. And that's also quite apt because he could speak
Talk on
any subject, hai na?
Yeah.
Any subject under the sun, and he's not talking shit. He knows what he's talking about. And as she mentioned, the kind of exposure, I mean, the first time I tasted Japanese food was because of him in South Africa. I didn't know what Japanese food was. So, therefore, I still can't find a word. But I know that I find myself absolutely privileged and honored to have been part of all his projects since 1992, in whatever way.
But you know, the thing about Shyam that I really appreciated, in those days we didn't have cell phones. And so you had to call on the landline. And it often happened that when he called, I wasn't there. And if he liked my work, he'd call once or twice. But if he didn't like it, he'd call 3 times. So if the phone has rung 3 times, then I knew that I have to call him back because here it is something he wants to convey to me. And then he would tell me what he thought was wrong with the performance. Now, only somebody who loves you very deeply can take that trouble, and I valued it so much. Not that I agreed with him every time. I also argued my way out. But just the fact that he would do this to me was so precious, so precious. You know, he didn't try to win any brownie points because it was something that came so naturally to him.
And even about his own films, if you ask him, what did he think of his own film? There was never some superlative phrase coming out. Yeah, I think it works. And that's about it. That was his thing.
Was he critical of his films, of his own films?
Oh, sometimes he said, it's okay. But these subtleties of expression, or if he's praising someone's work as ma'am just mentioned, I mean, he would say, yeah, you did fine. And left it at that. There was no superlative expressions the way he would express himself. You could have done. And if it was not good, you could have done better, I think. They were his way of saying things. He loved actors. He just loved actors. Very sensitive towards all his actors. Whether we are rehearsing or performing, he would shout at the crew and not to disturb somebody doing lines or even on the set. And I can't forget those moments in every project where you understand the sensitivity of that man every day. Humility personified.
I would say that it was the best relationship between an actor and a director because he didn't tell the actor exactly what he wanted. He would just say, this is what he feels, and then he'd leave you loose. But you could take many more risks than you normally would. You know, actors get very comfortable because they know, all right, this look will have this kind of significance if it is in this close-up and stuff like that. We all become very clever at it. And we start imitating ourselves.
Right.
Because it's the safe place to be in. But with Shyam, you can take risks because you know that if you're making an ass of yourself, he'll stop you.
He will.
He'll stop you. And so that is a very, very comforting
And even
place.
when he would challenge you, you know, it was, okay, let me see what you can do with this scene. दिखाओ, you know, उतना ही, so उतनी ढील जैसे कि दी कि देखें तो इसे तुम क्या करके कर सकते हो. And even a reprimanding that what you're doing is not right. No, I think you should try another way. So you still feel responsible and the onus of, let me see what I can do with this scene or that moment as an actor. So you feel more responsible ki I have to contribute.
But you know, Rajat, I have to tell you that he was also very canny.
What way?
I'll tell you. Because, you know, when we were doing Mandi, there were 40 actors who were either from the NSD or they were from the FTII. Some of them had big parts, some of them had small parts. But he created such an atmosphere of fun that there was no hierarchy. So I thought this was natural. Excuse me, I got to know that Shyam Benegal, on the day before the shoot, he called all his ADs and he said, listen, you are dealing with 40 egos. All of them are actors who are very good and very talented. Some of them have smaller parts, some of them have bigger parts, but they're all actors. Make sure that you look after the people who have smaller parts first, so that ego is not bruised. So there was a method to the madness, which I had no idea till a long time later. So it was not all babe in the woods. I mean, there was a design
Right.
to what he was doing. Yeah.
Right.
I think in that sense, you know, we were a bit spoiled because after this kind of, you know, being like one happy family and, you know, always being together, eating together, living together. And then when you step out to the rest of the world with
That's
the
when it hits
other,
you.
it hits you and you said, oh my God, what is this A, B and C category? So you just feel, what happened here, you know?
True, very true. You know, it's interesting that you mentioned his sets because that was a question that was coming later, but we'll kind of get into that. That what was a Shyam Benegal set like and what was it about him and the way he worked with everyone, whether his actors, his technicians, that made so many collaborators, you know, work with him time and again, time and again. I'm not even getting into the actors besides the two of you because that would take the whole day. But, you know, even people like, of course, Govind Nihalani, Vanraj Bhatia, Shama Zaidi, Satyadev Dubey, you know, Vijay Tendulkar, everybody. What was it about him that made people not give up the opportunity to work with him time and again?
Because he was a collaborator. There was no hierarchy. He really was a collaborator in the finest meaning of that term because he valued all the people. He realized that film is such a collaborative medium that in spite of the fact that finally it is the director who's captain of the ship, it's also the director's business to take on people that he valued for their work and allowed them to be creative enough without losing any of their spontaneity, but bringing it onto the same level that he has, which I think is all. That's why I've never dared to enter the field of direction because I think that's so challenging. You know, there are people who are coming from different levels of involvement. They're doing so many other things. You're the only person. So how do you calibrate that?
Right.
And he was wonderful. But he used to do simple things. Like today, it'll seem that obviously, it's a given. But he was the only director who, in an outdoor shoot, the first thing that he would do is build toilets. And the toilets were not only for the actors, for the technicians, for everybody else. Now, even at that time, I was also working in mainstream cinema. So you could be the biggest star ever. But there were no vanity vans. You just sat in the open. And then when you wanted to go for a pee, then I remember so many moments when my hairdresser and my assistant would hold a sari and constantly say, "Yahan mat dekho," so everybody would look. So we've done that so often that for the fact that he would think of that, then he would build a volleyball court, then he would build different things that he knew his actors would be occupied and enjoyed themselves. It was unheard of in those days.
He really
It was very
cared for
comfortable.
everyone, really did.
No, I think that's really a lovely word that she's used, collaborator. It just is all encompassing. And he'd expect you and the entire team to be there for breakfast in the morning. And if you're not there, he'll notice you were not there for breakfast in the morning. Where were you? Why were you not here half an hour before we start work? मतलब ये छोटी छोटी चीजें वो notice करते थे कि ये बंदा नहीं था breakfast में आज. And it could be anybody from the unit, not just the actors,
But Rajat, I'll tell you a very interesting story. When I first came to the village in which I did in Ankur, it was a small village near Hyderabad called Yella Reddy Guda. And I was this urban girl, never entered, never stepped into a village. And I was there in my jeans and t-shirt, and he said, "Why don't you just get into your sari and walk around and things like that?" Turned out I couldn't sit on my haunches. And everything that my character Lakshmi does is she's
Right.
on her haunches.
Right, yes.
It was something I couldn't do. So he said, "All right, you sit in that corner. We will all have our lunch here. You sit in that corner and you have your lunch there." So I would struggle, and I sat over there. Now, 4 or 5 days into the shooting, I think about 1 week into the shooting, some college boys came there. And they looked at me and they said, "Heroine kidhar hai?" So I said, "Chutti pe gayi hai." So they said, "Tum kaun hai?" तो मैंने कहा, "मैं आया हूँ." "हाँ, बोला था ना, चल." करके the college students went away. Now Shyam had watched that. And he said, "Come on, you've earned your place. You convinced them that you were not an actor, so come, now you can come and sit with us and eat with us." And so that was part of the training.
These are such wonderful stories.
And and I remember, the first day of shooting Suraj Ka Satwa Gada, believe me, I was so nervous. And we rehearsed the scene, but I think somewhere my hands were shaking or something. I don't know. So I'm trying to remember. But see the sensitivity of the man. He came quietly, whispered into my ear. He said, "Son, you are very nervous. We will take a 15-minute break." I mean, who is going to do that? It was a small room. There were 100 people staring with hawk-like eyes. Naya ladka dekhen kya karta. I got that kind of feel. And I was petrified. But he quietly came to me, whispered in my ear, "Just go take a 15-minute break and we'll start later." That's the man.
Absolutely. Okay. If we of course, we have to talk about his cinema. And his cinema, to kind of put it down very narrowly, was about giving a voice to the voiceless. Also the fact that it represented the times it was made in, but it is equally resonant today because we still have, divisions based on caste, gender, religion. We have the oppression of women. We have, speaking truth to power and facing the repercussions for it. Do you think his cinema stands the test of time because it was about that time and it is about the times that we are living in today?
Yeah, I think it was timeless. The films that he made were also are, in one sense, classic. So then they go past any sort of strains of time. And then they can translate into other situations, So the things that he did were not self-conscious. That's what I like the most about him. He was not wearing a flag of socialism. He was looking into everyday experiences that he was curious about. And along the way, that happened. In fact, a time came when I was worried for him because I felt that now he is becoming so strongly identified as a director with a cause that he's choosing his subjects according to that. It's almost like the mold is created and he has to fit into that mold. There was a time. But then I thought what he did wonderful was when he was in Parliament. How did that translate into a film? Was well done, Abba.
Right, yeah.
It was magical
Yes.
because it was that whole experience with the bureaucracy and what it actually means, and he made it such a human story. So, above all, he continued to be a storyteller and a filmmaker.
And to pick up from there, if you see the storytelling aspect or these personalized stories, if I may use the term, right from Ankur in 71, right up to his last film, Mujib, I do not think there is any other director in the country whose filmography and work gives you a social, economic, and, well, yes, political to an extent, the spectrum and fabric of our country. The complete arc of what we are is all embedded there in these personalized stories. Sometimes through causes, but you are still using them as personal stories to, whether, as she said, fight the system or whatever, but they reflect on us. The entire spectrum, over those, 40 odd years.
Right. True, very true.
Okay, there's another incident that I'd like to tell you. We were in Cannes for Nishant. We were in competition. And we had been given the princely sum of $8 each. That was what the government of India allowed you to take. So we were in some poor little hotel. So we would eat up the breakfast and the French fries because that was the only guaranteed meal we were going to get. We didn't know where else we would be able to eat whatsoever. तो वो सब खा लेते थे. उसके बाद अब पता चला last minute पे कि all the advertising material that was supposed to come hadn't come. There'd been a goof up. Now, my God, Cannes is all about parties and big grandiose things, and suddenly we realized we didn't have a single poster. What are we going to do? How are people going to know our film is showing? So he says, Shabana and Smita, wear your best Kanjivaram sarees, put on your bindis, and walk up and down the promenade. They have not seen women in sarees. They're all wearing bikinis and all that.
Wow.
And they will turn round to look at you. So from 8 o'clock after eating that meal, we would walk around. And then when people looked at us, we said, please, I've got a film at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Will you come? And the house was full. Now that's the advertising man for you, So we didn't despair that we didn't have anything. This was walking advertising.
Wow, I mean, you could actually write a book, both of you, on working with him because it's just wonderful stories. Also, when we talk about, you said that, he did not wear the whole, for want of a better word, the rebel that he was on his sleeve. And yet he made some of his most hard-hitting films, at least in the early years, during a very tenuous period in India's political history, which was in the 70s in the emergency. What does that say about him as a filmmaker, as a man, and as a man who was, who through his films was trying to fight back in his own way?
You couldn't separate the man from the filmmaker from the father from the husband, or the filmmaker from the friend. He was just one person. So there were different aspects, but they so organically mixed with the others that you never became conscious of the fact even that he had this, sharp ability to suss the political situation.
No veneers.
No, nothing.
Right.
Nothing. It just seemed very natural.
Right. Okay.
And many times people would try to entrap him in terms of, from the media, why did you make this film? What did it inspire you or not? And the questions would go on and he would just give a small smile and says, I made it because I wanted to. And that was it.
That's the best answer. Right. Okay. Also, we can't, of course, talk about his films without talking about the women in his films and the representation of women in his films. Because women, many of whom were played by you, took front and center. They were center stage in his films. Even when they were being oppressed, they were the protagonists. And he was a trailblazer in presenting women as individuals, as women with agency, as multidimensional characters, which I think was in because of that, at that time, most of Hindi commercial cinema at that point of time was boxing women into being either supportive wives or sacrificial mothers, and the worst prototype was the decorative love interest. Among all his many contributions to cinema, and I'm not just limiting this to Indian cinema, what would his representation of women and what he did with the women in his films, where would that stand?
Well, certainly that he broke the stereotype. He broke the stereotype and he presented her as a person, like you said, with agency and a human being with all the complexities and frailties of human beings. I remember when I did Ankur, a lot of people objected to the fact that the protagonist of the film, which was Lakshmi, played by me, she steals rice from the zamindar.
Right.
And they thought that that was a very negative thing to do, and then people would lose sympathy for the woman. And I said, what rubbish. I mean, that's what makes her so real. He's not whitewashing her, He's presenting her in her complexity, which even today, although mainstream Hindi cinema has definitely improved in its depiction of its women, it still is superficial is not a fair word, but an surfacey understanding. ये इसकी औरतें सब बहुत गड़बड़ भी करती थी भूमिका में देखो क्या क्या करती
And
थी.
all his women characters, big or small, had a voice. छोटे से छोटा कैरेक्टर आप औरतों का देख लो उनकी फिल्मों में, they had their own voice, उनका एक अपना वजूद था.
अच्छा एक और किस्सा मैं सुनाती हूँ. When we were doing Mandi, so I was very concerned about the fact that I thought the madame of a brothel, I was too young for that. I'd always thought of her as an older person, etc. So he said, nahi, you go and find out for yourself. So I went to 3 different brothels, one in Mumbai, and I realized that, oh my God, these were all very young women and they were dressed like the famous film star of that day. So the neckline, the blouse was cut exactly like star A, and there was red lipstick, and there was, thin eyebrows, and there were lots of very young people. So I said, Acha, this is completely different from the person I had in mind. And then I came out. Don't ask me who took me there. It was Farooq Sheikh and Aziz Nazan. Why they had access to that area, I never asked them because it was to my advantage. But they had taken me there. Then in Delhi, we went, Rukhsana Sultan, who was Amrita Singh's mother. She took me there, and they were that full adaएं of the Tawayaf, and I found a lot of Rukmini in them. The high exaggeration of politeness and stuff like that. And then in Hyderabad, Shyam and I both went to this brothel, and there was this fair girl, fairly diminutive almost. She had no makeup on her face. She was wearing a white blouse and a green nylon sari. And all the time that we were talking, she had her head down. And then they said, dance karke dikhao. So there's a film song of mine, Pooja Karungi Teri, Hoke Rahungi Tera, which is a almost devotional song that the wife sings for her husband on the night that is their Sohagrat. And she broke into the most vulgar depiction of Puja Karungi, which was all from the pelvic onwards and the thrust and all that. And I said, oh my God, what is she doing? And then she performed it like that, and then suddenly she switched off. So I realized it was a whole performance. It was actually a performance that she was doing. Throughout this, there was one man sitting in a corner, completely oblivious of what was happening, scratching his head and sitting on his haunches. And Shyam looked at him and said, "That's my Tungrus." And that's how Nasir got that part.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't there. But it was when it actually happened, he said Tungrus, and uska naam Tungrus tha. And then Nasir did that very memorable role.
Yes.
Because that's how, he was so open to life. He would put things that he saw, and that all came together.
Right. All realistic, flawed women would probably be the best example of what his women in cinema were, right? Okay. Also, I should have asked this a little earlier, but would it be fair or correct to say that his films also kind of, in a way, represented the rise of the angry young man or women, a lot of women, parallel to the rise of the angry young man as exemplified by Mr. Bachchan in commercial Hindi cinema? They were angry in certain ways.
I don't know about angry, but suppressed maybe.
Fighting against
From
suppression.
suppression
Yeah.
comes anger, right?
Yeah, but it was not necessarily, I don't know, I mean,
I think it's a bit stretched.
yeah.
Okay.
But
Okay.
what would you say?
But they
The
was
oppressed, the suppressed, or even so the underdog, but again it applies to the women as well. Not just that kind of angry young man of Zanjeer.
Not
I mean, not going to that extent.
right. Okay.
That creature was created by my husband Javed.
Yes.
So before I say anything and put my marriage in jeopardy, I think you should change the question.
Okay.
It's too late for that. Okay. Also, we have to talk about Manthan, which was actually the world's first crowd-funded film. It was made by the contribution of 2 rupees from 500,000 farmers of Gujarat. And the title of the film, the posters all say that 500,000 farmers of Gujarat present a film. That says a lot about him as a visionary, as a lot of your examples have also already kind of brought forth, where now in a day and age when crowd-funded films are there everywhere in every part of the world, and we talk so much about the democratization of content and of the creative space. What does this say about him as a visionary, that he made a crowd-funded film in 1977 when the world had not even heard about it?
Well, that's the person he was, wasn't he? Right from
You-
Ankur.
You've
onwards.
you've said it all. Actually, it's not really a question; it's a fact.
No, but what does it say about him? Are there other examples of him as a visionary that you kind of encountered on set?
I don't put it as separate, like I tell you, from the director that he was. Like, he did tackle difficult situations, and he did them very naturally, because when he heard about the cooperative movement of the farmers, but he went to Anand Gram and he was very influenced by them, etc. And then he just sort of naturally said that, all right, if they're already in a cooperative situation, how about we ask them to give this money? I don't think it came like he thought he was going to shake the world with it or something. It just happened very naturally. And then, of course, it became a very big thing.
And I think the man himself was always ready to experiment, innovate, explore, not just through his films, which we have seen, but even as a person. There was never any fixed, I mean, I don't know, you can't compartmentalize the way he thought, actually.
True. Very true.
He'd be very irritated if we spoke in such hagiographic terms about him, But he used to be very embarrassed by that. But let me tell you, when he flew into a temper, which he rarely did, खींच, na? he had one assistant who was the bane of his existence. And so when he used to get angry, he used to become very abusive. And the biggest form of abuse was donkey. Donkey. And I would say, oh my God, you're using cuss words.
Hell.
Donkey.
What the hell are you doing, Kemu? You know, that was...
Sweet, yeah.
That was the biggest abuse he could come up with.
Yeah, absolutely. The highest form. Can you imagine calling another adult donkey and feeling satisfied in that?
Ass, donkey. I mean, those were his cuss words, really. You would have really... Maybe once I heard him use the word bastard, I think.
I haven't even heard that.
Once. And I said, sir, it's okay. I can say it once in a while.
You know, I understand what you're saying because I watched that last interview of his that he did, I think, in October 24. And the interviewer had asked that, what would you think is your legacy? And he's like, I don't even think about it because, you know, that's not something that needs to be thought about. He was that kind of a person.
On that interview, he was asked that, which of your films do you like? And you know what his answer was? None of them,
Yeah.
actually.
Right, okay. Also, you know, the fact that his work across different mediums was very prolific. He made 24 films, but he made 45 documentaries. And that documentary that he made on Mr. Satyajit Ray is one for the ages, right? Because it holds your attention for 2 hours when it's only him and Mr. Ray talking. There are no other talking heads or anything of that sort. What do you think contributed to him being such a great documentary filmmaker, just in terms of having a very curious mind?
Curiosity. Oh my God. He was very, very curious and very interested. He was very interested in life. He was very interested. He used to read a lot. He was very interested in music. He was interested in the lives of his assistants, you know. In the morning when we would travel together, he was always reading the newspapers. But when we came back after the day and sort of when he thought, Acha, what do we have to do tomorrow? Then what has happened with your girlfriend now? Have you made up with her? It was this kind of very, very curious man. And continued to be right up till the end.
And the research that went into a screenplay, it's not that you just got a script in your hand and it never ended there. I remember even during the series we did on Bose, at one point in the middle, he suddenly called and said, we found some more interesting material about the character you're going to play, because there was very little that they had found about this fellow, Abid Hassan, which I was playing. They just had sketches. So it never stopped. So it kept you he almost kept you on your toes, if I may put it that way. There's no complacency, because he was such a voracious reader that there was always something coming at you. New stuff that he would want to add or tell you to do it. Go find out, he'd say. I found out this, now you go and find this out.
Even in his later years, I think he was, as you said, he would keep you all on your toes, but I think he was always also on his toes, because the last film that he made, which was Mujib, was a very difficult film to make, and it was 3.5 hours long at that age to make a film like that.
He didn't have the strength to kind of walk around. He would be there seated with the mic and giving in the instruction, but he was there at 8 in the morning, you know.
That says such a lot about him. Also the fact that, you know, I think our growing up years also in the 80s, if it was kind of defined by Ramayana and Mahabharata on Doordarshan, it was also by Bharat Ek Khoj, which was a cultural encyclopedia that he brought to life. He actually made, you know, if I put it a little flippantly, made history very cool for a whole generation. What do you think? And again, I'm not really getting into the scholarly bit of it, but if you want to talk about that, the fact that what did that actually do for history, for an entire generation?
Well, he
beyond?
was a great admirer of Nehru. And I mean, secularism was in his blood. Pluralism was in his blood. And while when he decided to make Bharat Ek Khoj, वो हमेशा कहते थे ये मेरा भी खोज है. He is trying to discover within that, but thank God for it, because with all the history that's being wiped out in textbooks today, thank God for something like that.
What a document it
Yeah.
is. It's a masterpiece. It should be studied in school.
It should be 53 episodes of absolute gold. It is, for sure. Okay, I'll just ask you one last question before we kind of open it to the audience. I'm sure they have a lot of questions to ask. You know, his idols, as he said, were Vittorio De Sica and Satyajit Ray, and I'm sure there were quite a few others. And you know, there've been people like there've been directors like Shekhar Kapoor who said that he's been influenced by him, inspired Hansal Mehta today, Anand Gandhi. Do you think, I'm not saying that there can be another Shyam Benegal because that is not the right way to put it, but do you see you know, some shades of his work, the person that he was, the thoughts that he had in any filmmaker today?
It's very difficult to say that, you know, because it's like somebody lighting a match. और उसकी जो रोशनी और उसकी लौ है अलग अलग ढंग से हम सब में है. So I don't know whether it's really fair to point it out like that. You know, his glow, the light, or how
I
would
think
you put
everyone's
it?
imbibed something.
Yeah, and so many people. So many young filmmakers, even who are studying in FTI today, they are watching his films. So वो उस inspiration को आप क्या कहेंगे? He's lit the torch. Now, you have to figure it out how much and where to light it, whether to ignite it or not.
Very true. Very true. Okay, ma'am, do you want to add to this? Okay.
अच्छा आप लोग तालियां बनाने बजा के हम लोग अपनी वो screaming away. हाँ, thank you at
Please,
least
yes,
that
we can
much
do better
in
than
this
that.
afternoon sun. Yeah.
I'd like to say that, you know, it was pretty cold here, so I won't say that the two of you have brought the heat from Bombay, but you've brought the warmth maybe.
Thank you.
Okay, do you have a mic to go around? Does anyone want to ask anything?
They can take my mic.
I'm sure there is.
But who's running around with a mic?
Let me think. I can see. Oh, yeah.
Good afternoon, ma'am and sir. And it has been truly a privilege. And in fact, we were not clapping; we were all mesmerized by whatever you were saying.
Smart answer. I'll buy it happily.
I mean, it was definitely a full exposure for people like us who have grown up watching the work of great maestro. Just one thing that always intrigues us is the depth, the contextualization, and the research that goes into each and every project that he has brought to the table. Be it like Trikal, where Goa, we have you will say the shades of Goa which you have never explored before, or maybe Bombay, maybe Mammo, where you will see the shades of Bombay you have not perhaps explored before, or be it definitely the epic called the Bharat. So I would just like to get some idea from you whether what was the kind of research methodology he would explore, whether he would be a person who will often be found in the libraries when he was not around in the sets, or he had a close group of researchers with whom he would be doing his homework, because these kinds of master projects is impossible to be taken up without in-depth research. Thank you.
It was Shama Zaidi really who was his main researcher. वो किताब का कीड़ा है और writer भी हैं, और तो she would do a lot of the research for him. I mean, I know definitely about Shama Zaidi. I don't know who the others were.
And I think partly the answer was in your question. You know, his office was a library actually. There was no place. There were bookshelves right from when you enter the office. So, I mean, that itself gives you an idea of, you know, what all went into the work before a screenplay was written.
But he was also very interested in truth. And so, once very nicely explained to me, he said, listen, the difference between mainstream cinema and what we refer to as the art cinema is that mainstream cinema exists by whitewashing all the details. They don't want to locate you in Maharashtra or Gujarat or Tamil Nadu, because then they worry. Mainstream cinema worries that there only South Indians will like a film. Regional, वो regional हो जाएगी. तो हिंदी फिल्म में एक heroine होती है जिसका नाम होता है Miss Neeta. She doesn't have any surname. at all. Okay, she's Miss Nita. And then the hero is Mr. Vijay. Where is this Mr. Vijay coming from? What is happening? Nobody knows. I mean, it used to be the bane of my existence when I would go on a set and I would realize that whether it is a lowly clerk or it is a big industrialist, unke bedroom mein there would be one dressing table which would have one Pond's talcum powder, one Charmis cream, one hastily borrowed comb from the makeup artist, and it would be there. There was never any sense that, you can't use the bed cover to cover yourself. भाई उसके लिए एक रज़ाई होनी चाहिए एक्शन. So there was no furniture realism because they didn't bother with it. It was an alternative reality that was being created because it was meant to whitewash everything. Whereas cinema like his reveled in locating it in an identifiable place. And that's why the history of that place was very, very important to him as an intrinsic part of his storytelling. And when he said that to me, I was so fascinated by it because there was no judgment. It was just an observation, which is what he did with most of life.
No, that's so wonderfully put, It was so rooted.
I'd request you to please keep your questions concise and to the point so we can get in more questions.
Good afternoon, everybody. My question is to Mrs. Azmi. Ma'am, first of all, let me tell you, I enjoyed the drama yesterday. I was there at the Kalamandir. And my question is that you have played diverse roles in the late Maestro's films. Now, I'm very interested to know the transformation that he brought into your role as Lakshmi in Ankur. From a modern girl, urban girl, to that rustic village role that you portrayed.
Well, I talked about it briefly in the beginning, and that was putting me in those clothes and making me walk around the village. And then I had to learn to pound the mirchi, which there's a certain rhythm to it, and I couldn't do it. And all the women used to laugh at me and say, "Itni badi shahar ki ladki hai, and you can't do a simple thing like that." And then I talked very nicely about a time when a tailor was brought to me. And so he just looked at me and said, "Okay." So I told Shama Zaidi, was the costume designer, that, but he hasn't taken my measurements. How is he going to make the blouse? She said, "You're crazy in the village. That man is going to take the measurement of your chest. You must be joking." So I said, "So how is he going to do it?" He said, "वो जो उसने ऊपर से नीचे देख लिया बस वही." So it was a completely different world that I was exposed to over there. And really, as I spent my time over there, I could actually see my walk changing, my gait changing. And that wouldn't have happened had I walked around in my jeans. So the fact is that the minute he saw me there and he made me wear, and it was a very short palla which would keep falling. So it was very unobtrusive ways in which it just happened. And I'm also a trained actor. That also helps, I think.
Thank you, ma'am.
I think we have time for one more, or at least two more. One more. Yeah.
My question to both of you. Many considered Shyam Benegal to be the poster boy of parallel films. But he himself didn't think so. Why do you think was that? Poster boy of parallel films. Many
Can you
thought
explain what that means? Poster boy of parallel cinema,
Could never call him a poster boy.
Pioneer would be maybe more apt.
You mean pioneer?
so? Sort of, yes.
Yeah, well,
What's the
we
question?
must know that Ray existed before that. Mrinal Sen existed, but they were not in Hindi cinema. And really, it was being at the right place at the right time, because they just absorbed what that film had to do. In fact, it still surprises me how that film became, well, successful, of course, critically, but also commercially. It made money. And it's the fact that it made money commercially, that made Blaze put into Shyam Benegal's films again and again finance. And that opened the doors for a lot of filmmakers to realize that they could get financial backing for films of this kind. And I mean, these were made in very little money. For Ankur, I got paid the princely sum of 15,000 rupees. So, I mean, the whole film was made in 5 lakhs. But then after that, it moved forward. And a time came, in fact, Rajat, when it became a sort of parallel star world. Because there was just Smita and Nasir and Om and I and Deepthi and
and the
Farooq.
number of actors.
Yeah.
And he never gave up making films. That's another very important aspect.
Yes. Yeah.
Even if it means less money, he said, okay, then let's re-budget the film. They are only giving me X and not Y what I've asked for. It never stopped him from making films. With Blaze, later with NFDC, and so many other producers as well.
With Shashi Kapoor, Junoon was probably the most
Junoon,
expensive
Kalyug,
film.
that was probably,
Junoon,
those
yeah.
were maybe
Those
a
were
bit
the
bigger
bigger
budgeted
films,
films. It never stopped the man. He was always he worked itself around what was given. I have to make it. वो जुनून था.
Just one last question, sorry. Anyone? Yeah. Someone has their hand up here.
Yeah, you mentioned Junoon. So, do you have any anecdote to share about Junoon? Because that, and another thing I'd like to ask both of you, mythology as a metaphor in Shyam Benegal films. What's your opinion about that?
I think you should answer about mythology in his film. Well, in Suraj Ka Satwaं Ghoda, for instance. I mean, mythology, the myth, I think. Not
The myth, you mean, not really mythology.
Yes.
To be honest with you, when I read the book, it's a 100-page novel by Dharamveer Bharati. It was my first film. I wasn't a very cocky young man, but I still said, yaar, why are they making this film? Let's not screw the novel up. KK Rena, who was playing my brother, said, tum chup kar, tumhe chance mil raha hai, you just quietly go and bloody do your part. Don't get into these discussions. And it still was bothering me, nagging me. The imagery in the book, I mean, why? Let's leave a novel the way it is and let my imagination, create those visuals and all. When I saw the film in the first screening, I actually went up to him and I said, I don't know what magic you've made, sir. Because I could not believe that this 100-page novel could be visualized the way you have. All credit, of course, along with Mr. Benegal, to the DOP Piyush Shah. I still, when I saw it 25 years later, I said, ये कहाँ से कैसे बन गई यार? कुछ समझ नहीं आया. There is no rule for these things. It's heart and soul. That's it.
And about Junoon?
Junoon, well, Junoon was based on a short story by Ruskin Bond called Flight of the Pigeons, which was read by Jennifer Kapoor, and she suggested it should be made into a film. Now, for us, I mean, I didn't have a very big part in it, so I would hang around on the sets a lot, and I was playing the Beatles. And Shashi Kapoor came and said, "You're playing the Beatles?" I said, "Yeah, why not?" He said, "What nonsense. It's got nothing to do with the atmosphere." So I said, "So what am I supposed to do?" So he put on some classical music and then he said, "Isko suno." I said, "Yaar, kam se kam Begum Akhtar to sun lene do." And so then he would come and bully us around, ke kya karna hai, kya nahi karna hai. But I remember the last scene when they're migrating. It's such a huge, there are elephants in it and there are ghodas in it and there are chariots and all that. And after doing that, which is an almost impossible exercise, Govind Nilani says, "Let's do a safety take." So I said, "You must be mad." So Shyam Benegal said, "He's a very important part of the film and if he feels he needs it, then we will go and we will do it." So he would listen to his people like that. And I thought it was quite a wonderful film. And the music was used very beautifully in it. I enjoyed.
Thank you so much. It's I've had a really wonderful time listening to all of these anecdotes. I don't think you've heard them before. Thank you to the two of you. And as they say, Mr. Shyam Benegal will live on. He'll live forever, and his cinema will live forever. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was
Thank
a
you very
pleasure.
much.
Thank you.